I calculated Red Bull's race pace, and I think there's two big Red Bull questions leaving this weekend. One is, so just how much faster is Red Bull? Like, there's varying takeaways that we're hearing. Just how much faster are they? And I needed to know, which is why I calculated the race pace. But also, I think, coupled with that is, do we believe that Sergio Perez can actually compete with Max, at least for a little bit, for the championship?
It's a very interesting question, and you and I've had a couple of discussions about it, but I think, like, the person you asked that question to, who is the only person that knows the answer, thus we all know the answer, is Max.
Nicole and Briana are lined up on the grid. It's lights out, and away we go on this week's grid walk.
Like,
True.
It's not, do we believe that Perez can? It's like, Max will just make sure that, like, he can't. Or, like, given any opportunity to just stay in front, and you know that Max wanted P1 and, like, be able to come back through all of this. And shout out to Checo for just pushing and, like, keeping that P1. Because he had to be sweating in that. So, I mean, I think Checo will. It all just kind of depends on what happens to Max. Because Red Bull can say and give whatever pace they want. Max wants to win. Max literally came out and gave quotes of saying, he's not here to be second. And it was great for the team. He's not here to be second. And he got that fastest lap just to ensure that there's not a week that he's not in first place of Drivers' Championship.
I agree with you. I do think it's an interesting development that Red Bull seems like they're not going to be Team Max right now. I thought that was the most interesting thing to come out, that they were giving both drivers the same times, and they then just let them loose to race because they couldn't control them. When historically, they would have just been like, Checo, slow down, swap cars.
Yeah. It felt very like a almost Ferrari moment of Red Bull, where they're like, we have this on lock. Like, there's going to be or a Mercedes. Yeah, I guess I'm just speaking of like a recent
last year. Yeah,
like a team is not calling team orders, and like everyone's getting the same guidelines, and it's like a team effort and not like here's a driver that needs to move in order to, like, it so felt like, this is weird that we're not just seeing a team orders occur to give like Max the go ahead.
I do think that Red Bull as an entity is smart, and they understand. So it all goes back to this franchise model. All 10 teams at the end of the day have the same financial interest, which is, even though they're competing on the racetrack, they need F1 to be healthy. And I do think Red Bull is smart enough to understand, if we're going to have this crazy dominant car, we need to do what Mercedes did and let our drivers fight, even if it's not necessarily always the fairest fight, because I think we both think Max would have been P1, would have won that race easily if it wasn't for the drive shaft failure in qualifying.
Yeah.
But I think for just perception, for viewership, to making sure people don't evacuate the sport at race 2, I think Red Bull understands they can't get on the radio and give team orders for financial reasons. That being said...
I hope so. Because Christian had plenty of quotes when, Mercedes was up in the front and, like, dominating, and talking about how horrible it was for the sport. So, like, at least we got to see... There was interesting racing this weekend, no matter what. And even if that interesting racing was Max passing 15 people, like, that's incredible just to see happen, even though you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. Two things to your point. I think there's 2 different eras of Mercedes dominance we can look at, and they have 2 different effects. So there's the early, like, the first hybrid power unit come out the gates, 2014, 15, 16. And Mercedes was very much at that time like, let our drivers race. And then we got 2016 as a result of that, with the whole explosion of Nico and Lewis, which I think Mercedes has since learned that maybe letting them race in that way wasn't the perfect way to let them race. But through the entire Valtteri-Lewis partnership, they always were told to let race. And when the car was incredibly dominant in 2020, 2019, they were told they were allowed to race. Lewis was just faster. But there was it never really felt like there was until late 2019 is interesting because Ferrari had the alleged not confirmed, rumored, a very illegal power unit at the beginning of the season. So I think at the beginning of the season, there was no, like, let them race because they were competing with Ferrari. But then they weren't competing with Ferrari anymore. But I digress a little bit. I think it's interesting to see a modern Red Bull in this situation. I do think for perception that they did the right thing this weekend in making sure viewership doesn't go down. But I to the original question, like, can Checo fight with Max? It depends how many things go wrong with Max's car. Like, we do have a bunch of street races coming up in the early parts of the season. Is there actual Honda power unit issues, and do those disproportionately affect Max? Then we're going to have a longer championship battle. And I think Honda PU reliability issues. Let's all collectively pray, because I did pull the race pace numbers, and it's about a second a lap. I think it's 0.6, sometimes a half a second to the Aston, but it's to Mercedes and Ferrari, it's about a second a lap, more to the Alpine. It's an astronomical amount of pace beyond everyone else.
Yeah. And I've listened to a couple podcasts, and the big question online is, well, we know that Max isn't going to win every single race this year because he didn't. And then people are like, well, do you think Alonso can win one race? And the answer is, well, if the Honda power unit continues to have reliability issues and something happens to Max and Checo in a race, well, yeah, there you go, straight out. But even still, I think there's more ways that it can happen, but it doesn't seem impossible.
No, because motor racing's fluky, and there's going to be some random race where, like, some crash happens, there's just, like, it happens. Like, if you, even just looking at last year, like, Mercedes didn't win Brazil because they just all of a sudden got pace. Like, fluky things happened. They won the Brazil race. Like, we have 6 sprint races this year. There's going to be more races with less prep time, things. There will be one weekend where stuff just goes wrong because there's a lot of races now. Mm-hmm. If we had 16 races this season, I would be like, no, it's all probably good. But, like, there's 23, so. But this does allude to one of the podiums that I brought for this recording. Words.
Yes. Saudi Arabian GP podiums.
Yes.
What's your first podium?
So, I have 2. I need to do them together. It's moments that made me very sad this weekend, and I'm going to group that with moments that actually made me smile this weekend. I don't like to
probably like the sad one should have been like wah wah wah.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't want to just talk about the things that made me sad.
Thanks so much for listening to this segment from episode 9 of Gridwalk. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more F1 videos and silly F1 content that we're posting all of the time, and new full episodes every single week. You made it this far in the video. Watch the rest of the podcast. You're missing so much more fun. So if you like this clip, make sure to go to our channel. You can click here for the full thing. Click right here. You can click right here, and you can hear the whole entire thing. Click it. Thank you.